Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. I hope the week's gone well. It's very wet here in Nairobi, and we should all be grateful for that. It rained all night last night. And the rain in Africa tends to be pretty dramatic as well. I like this from Truth Slinger, who's a photographer. On top of the world with Peter Jomo Munga in Cape Town. And that made me think of Kanye West's Touch the Sky, which is one of my favorite songs ever. And then I discovered that there's a precursor to it. And I really like Touch the Sky. Interesting detail is Pamela Anderson, who features in that Touch the Sky video, has been a regular visitor to Julian Assange. Reminiscences, who I follow on Twitter, says, "Stand up for light, stand down the dark, or sleepwalk into night with a shadow for a heart." Macro thoughts, I like this photograph of Steve Mnuchin, who tweeted just arrived in Bari for the G7 Finance Ministerial. Thought it was an attractive photograph. Emerging market sovereign credit spreads at their tightest levels in more than 4 years, 416 basis points. And that's Charlie Bilello. And that probably explains some of the strength in currencies like the Rand, where, in my view, the political risk has now had to break cover, and it's right there for all of us to see. And at some point, we're going to come horribly unstuck. And for example, on the Rand, my target is 1440, but we'll come to that. Look at this graph from Holger, US-China trade balance, but I saw some progress in that regard. China's going to allow beef imports and a bunch of other stuff, so clearly whatever Trump is doing with China, you can see some results. This tweet was about Sumitomo Bank, for whom I worked in London for a number of years. Reminded me of my past. My favorite stock market book was written more than 100 years ago, and it's called Reminiscences of a Stock Market Operator, and it's still so powerful. Quite often I go back, read the comments and read the quotes. There is nothing new in Wall Street. There can't be, because speculation is as old as the hills. Whatever happens in the stock market today has happened before and will happen again. The game of speculation isn't all mathematics or set rules, however rigid the main laws may be. Observation, experience, memory, and mathematics, these are what the successful trader must depend on. He must not only observe accurately, but remember at all times that what he has observed. He cannot bet on the unreasonable or the unexpected. However strong his personal convictions may be about man's unreasonableness, or however certain he may feel that the unexpected happens very frequently, he must bet always on probabilities, that is, try to anticipate them. Years of practice at the game of constant study, of always remembering, enable the trader to act on the instant when the unexpected happens, as well as when the expected comes to pass. And then two Turgenev quotes for today. Time sometimes flies like a bird, sometimes crawls like a snail, but a man is happiest when he does not even notice whether it passes swiftly or slowly. Ivan Turgenev. The word tomorrow was invented for indecisive people and for children. Al Jazeera English tweeted, "How long is the world fasting this Ramadan? We break it down for you." Look at some of those places where you've got to fast for 18 hours. I like this architecture. 95% of Senegalese are Muslims. This is the first non-Arabian mosque of the divinity Dakar I've seen. Basari huts as minarets, Mr. Bazabones. Yasha, what a time to be alive. You've got to listen to the video. This is the video of President Trump being interviewed about Comey's decapitation. In a private dinner, Trump demanded loyalty. Comey demurred. As they ate, the president and Mr. Comey made small talk about the election and the crowd sizes at Mr. Trump's rallies. The president then turned the conversation to whether Mr. Comey would pledge his loyalty to him. Mr. Comey declined to make that pledge. Instead, Mr. Comey has recounted to others. He told Mr. Trump that he would always be honest with him, but that he was not reliable in the conventional political sense. Comey again replied that he would give him honesty and did not pledge his loyalty according to the account of the conversation. Mr. Trump pressed him on whether it would be honest loyalty. You will have that, Mr. Comey told his associates. He responded. Throughout his career, Mr. Trump has made loyalty from the people who work for him a key priority. After discharging employees he considers insufficiently reliable. It's a little bit like the mafia, isn't it? You've got to pledge your loyalty and stick to it. That's how it's very binary when it comes to President Trump. The acting FBI director contradicted the White House on James Comey. President Trump was meant to go and visit the FBI, but obviously got put off by this reaction. Jill Flipovich tweets, sometimes I read Trump's Twitter and recall that for most of American history, people were like, women are too emotional to be president. Ivan Osnos in The New Yorker is asking how Trump could get fired. The Constitution offers two main paths for removing a president from office. How feasible are they? By this point in George Bush's term, Bush had traveled to 23 states and a foreign country. Trump has visited just 9 states and has never stayed the night. He inhabits a closed world that one advisor recently described to me as Fortress Trump. Rarely venturing beyond the White House and Mar-a-Lago, he measures his fortunes through reports from friends, staff, and a feast of television coverage of himself. Media is Trump's drug of choice. Sam Nunberg, an advisor on his campaign, told me recently he doesn't drink, he doesn't do drugs, his drug is himself. It's not clear how fully Trump apprehends the threats to his presidency. Unlike previous Republican administrations, Fortress Trump contains no party elder with the stature to check the president's decisions. There is no one around him who has the ability to restrain any of his impulses on any issue ever for any reason, Steve Schmidt, a veteran Republican consultant, said, adding, where is the what the fuck chorus? He tends to not like a lot of negative feedback, Rudy told me. Rudy has noticed that some of Trump's associates are unwilling to give him news that will upset him. I don't think he realizes how fully intimidating he is to many people, because he's such a large guy and he's so powerful. I already sense that a lot of people don't want to give him bad news about things. I've already been approached by several people that'll say he's got to hear this. Could you tell him? Trump world map, where country size dictated by number of Trump tweets about it, from Bank of America's Transforming the World Atlas. Look, overall, I think we're in a very interesting place. Trump's ego is massive. But I don't think an impeachment is likely or on the cards at the moment. Balance of power, Xi's vision as Washington fixates on the latest White House crises. Xi Jinping is making another long-term power play. The Chinese president will host the first Belt and Road Forum in Beijing on Sunday, the centerpiece of a soft power push. backed by hundreds of billions of dollars in infrastructure projects. For Z, the initiative is designed to solidify his image as a leading globalist in a new era of America First protectionism. 28 leaders, including Vladimir Putin, will listen to him extol the virtues of a vast network of ports, railways, and pipelines that will plug China's economic hubs into key markets across Asia and Europe. Much could still go wrong. The US and India worry it could help China expand its military footprint, plus slowing growth could leave China with less money to spend on the project. Still, Xi will use it to cement his status as China's most powerful leader since Deng Xiaoping as he starts to think about his second term. And it has the potential to reshape Asian trade patterns as US and Europe turn inward and debate their roles in the world. Xi is taking a longer view, indeed he is, and that all roads and all railways lead to Beijing. Villa Somalia President Farmajo meets with the US Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis on the sidelines of the London Somalia conference. He said if we had bigger, better guns, we'd defeat Shabab. The member of the Navy SEALs who was killed last week in Somalia was moving alongside, not behind, as the Pentagon had initially said. From this same Somalia conference, Somalia is open for business and we mean business. USAID welcomes historic public-private dialogue event in London. Ex-rebel leaders detail role played by Putin aid in East Ukraine. A top aide to Vladimir Putin decides how the pro-Moscow administration of Eastern Ukraine is run and who gets what jobs there, 3 former rebel leaders said. The extent of his influence and powers has not been spelled out or acknowledged by the Kremlin, which casts its role in the conflict as one where it has influence but is not a protagonist. This is Surkov, helped Putin engineer Russia's tightly controlled political system and coined the term sovereign democracy, which the Kremlin uses to describe the system. This is Vladislav Kurkov in a photograph. He is the inventor of the phrase that I've used several times, a constant state of destabilized perception. That's his theory about running a country like Russia. How can I communicate with them while they prepare for the arrival of Al-Mahdi al-Montazar? That was the Saudi crown prince, deputy crown prince. And I was saying so many capitals are fiddling while sitting on a tinderbox playing with matches. The deputy crown prince was quoted on Al Arabiya about Iran, and he said, how can I communicate with them while they prepare for the arrival of Al-Mahdi al-Montazar? And I said, this is deluded thinking at a time when things can seriously fall apart. Hassan Nasrallah, who is the leader of Hezbollah, says, when the Mahdi comes, no oppressive king or tyrant will be left. In response to the deputy crown prince, and he also says, Hezbollah says a future war would be on Israeli territory. Can Syria ever be repaired when its long civil war finally comes to an end? Asked Robert Fisk. I don't think so. President Lula is saying that he's likely to challenge for the presidency in the next election. Let's move on to international markets. Where's all the volatility gone? Asks Bloomberg. 10-year yields, if you're interested, people feel that it's going to back up and that the Fed might tighten more aggressively than people are thinking. Let's move on to the currency markets and take a look at those. Euro dollar 108.69, dollar index above that key level of 99.50 at 99.66. Japanese yen 113.64, Swiss franc 100.74, the pound damped down by Carney 128.55, the Aussie popping a little bit here 0.7397. India rupee 64.315, South Korean won 11.2704, Brazilian real 3.1405, Egyptian pound 18.0470, and the rand is a little bit softer, 13.43. Dollar index, I'll put up a 3-month chart. 99.50 is the key pivot. As long as we can stay above that, then I've got to go with a stronger dollar. Dollar yen, look at the 6-month chart. I'm expecting it to strengthen a little bit more from here. But it really, when it makes its moves, the moves tend to be very big. UK wage growth in real terms since the crisis has been mostly negative and heading that way again as inflation outstrips weak wage rises. This is Jamie at Reuters. Sterling 1-year chart, we're now at 128.57. We've had a good recovery, but Carney has thrown a cold towel over sterling yesterday. Gold, let's take a look at that. After a torrid downside action, we're back at 1228.68, firmed up a little. Is Brent at $50.91 set to turn lower again? Asks the Daily FX team. It was the mother of all short squeezes, and I'm expecting to go back to the lows of the year. Rising rupee, no barrier for India's high-tech export machine. Indian exports are defying a firm rupee, riding a rise in global growth with a surge in shipments of the kind of high-tech goods every nation cuts. Exports rose to a 6-year high in March. For now, that upward trend is tipped to continue. Take a look at India's merchandise exports to get an idea of where they go. UAE is a big taker, for example. Turkey detains 57 in an operation against the Istanbul Stock Exchange. Be interested to see the reasoning behind that, no doubt. They're being accused by Erdogan of short selling or something. Frontier Markets top Azeri Bank halts foreign debt payments, plans a restructuring. Look at the move. The price of the bank's 2019 dollar bond tumbled 15%, lifting the yield 8.83 percentage points to 14.188%. Very regrettable, but speaks to the pressure that these oil economies are coming. Very good essay by Daniel Knowles in CapEx. Africa is urbanizing without globalizing. A few days before, he says African cities are built for consuming, not creating wealth. Kinshasa is home to 12 million, yet only 11 international flights leave each day. He says most of Africa's megacities are an unproductive mix of slums and white elephants, he says. A few days before Christmas, I had the most tense journey to an airport of my life. I was in Kinshasa, the capital of the DRC, where I'd been reporting on the end of President Kabila's term. He had refused to step down despite being constitutionally limited to 2 terms. My flight back to Kenya wasn't due to take off until the mid-afternoon, but that morning my driver and I set out to the airport at 6 a.m. Along the Boulevard du 13 Juin, what used to be the city's Belgian core, but is now a vast and smooth Chinese-built highway, rocks littered the road. We drove past lorries full of police officers in navy blue. On the corners, young men stood in small groups. Occasionally, we'd hear the pop of a tear gas grenade being flung into the neighborhoods along the road. Getting out of Kinshasa was particularly stressful, but when I got inside the terminal and looked up at the forlorn departure boards, I was reminded that, even at the best of times, leaving Congo's capital isn't easy. This is Africa's 3rd biggest city at 12 million. Its population is bigger than London's, yet it has almost no connections to the outside world. On normal days, there are only 11 international flights out of Kinshasa per day. At Heathrow, the figure is around 1,400. Apart from the airport, the only other way to this vast megacity is the rickety ferry from neighboring Congo-Brazzaville. If you are extremely brave, you can try the road to the Atlantic Ocean, but that's about it. Kinshasa can burn, and most of the world doesn't notice, because Kinshasa is only slightly better connected to the global economy than the North Pole. Yet somehow it is one of the world's fastest growing cities. Kinshasa is a particularly extreme example of how Africa is urbanizing without globalizing. 60 years ago, the whole of sub-Saharan Africa had no cities with a population of more than 1 million people. Now it has dozens. Unlike the English peasants who moved to factory cities in the 19th century or Chinese ones in the 20th, the people moving to African cities are not moving to new global metropolises. Africa's urbanization is not driven by economic growth. Instead, people are moving to miserable megacities with crumbling infrastructure, corrupt political systems, and with exports of almost nothing. 2/3 of Africa's urban population growth is accounted for by slums. Changing that may well be the biggest challenge facing African governments in the 21st century. Very good essay. The problem with African cities is that they are generally built for the rich elite. Kinshasa is dotted with football stadiums, grand theatres, and spectacular government buildings. All that crumbling remains of President Mobutu Sese Seko's attempt to build a Pan-African capital. In that, it is hardly alone. Dakar in Senegal has a ludicrous African Renaissance statue built by North Korea. Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital, has a growing number of glitzy housing estates for the wealthy, reclaimed from the lagoon, the most spectacular, the Echo Atlantic, reclaimed from the Atlantic Ocean by a Lebanese-Nigerian family, wants to be a new financial capital to rival Canary Wharf. But all these cities lack the basics. Roads are jammed up, power is erratic. There is often little in the way of sewage systems or clean water. China-Africa trade investment is off to a flying start in 2017. China's trade with African countries rose nearly 1/5 in the first quarter from a year earlier. Trade cooperation between China and Africa is off to a flying start in 2017 thanks to policy benefits from a cooperative framework laid down by the Chinese and African leaders in South Africa in 2015. China's total trade with Africa rose 16.8% to $38.8 billion in the first quarter, its first quarterly increase on a yearly basis since 2015. The IMF chief is proposing a visit to the Congo amid this economic slump. Lagarde has written to the DRC President Kabila to propose a visit from IMF officials. The rare move by the IMF's top official to outline such a proposal directly to head of state underscores concerns about rapid currency depreciation, low foreign reserves, violent political upheaval, and a dire need for cash. The franc has lost half its value since last year due to low oil and mineral prices, and inflation jumped from under 2% in 2015 to over 25% this year. I concluded by saying President Kabila has neutered his opponents like the exiled Moishi Katumbi, but he cannot buck the market. In many African countries, a traffic violation generally results in nothing worse than a fine or a demand for a bribe. In Zambia, one man faces a somewhat stiffer charge, treason. That man in question is Hakainde Hichilema. Telesphore Mupundu, the Catholic Bishop of Lusaka, weighed on Zambia's most serious political crisis in years, saying our country is now all except in designation a dictatorship. South African oil shares up 6.83% in 2017, and what I'm seeing is an upturn in the African markets lagged international and emerging markets, and I'm seeing a bit of an upturn. Nigeria's stock market was on track for its strongest weekly gain for 11 months. Index rose 3.18% across 28,000 on Thursday, gaining for the 10th straight day. I said I think Nigerian stocks have bottomed out, and any further adjustments in the currency will fuel the rally, and partly because Africa has lagged the rest of the world. Nigerian oil shares up 5.76% and a 9-month closing high. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index is up 12.77% and has done well all year. Kenya's largest bank expects rate cap removal in the second half. I'm very confident that a workable solution between the industry and lawmakers would be achieved, most likely by the second half of of the year. This is Joshua Oigara of KCB. It's something we never want to happen to us again. It's a great lesson for us as an industry. Lenders face a drop in revenue of as much as 25% and are being forced to reduce costs by closing branches and cutting jobs to offset the decline, Barclays Kenya CEO Jeremy Owori said in a separate interview. President Kenyatta introduced the cap in August, ignoring the advice of the central bank and the Treasury as he sought to fulfill a 2013 election pledge to lower the cost of credit. Kenyatta will seek re-election on August the 8th, and he's unlikely to remove the ceiling before then. The caps limit interest charges to 400 basis points above the central bank's key rate, currently at 10%. Patrick Njoroge said the caps are a temporary aberration and the country will return to allowing interest rates to be determined by the market in the future. Amount of credit banks provide to the private sector with the rate of growth has declined to 4.9% in December, its slowest in 13 years, according to data compiled by Bloomberg. They've got to remove it. The question is when. KCB share price data, that's up 18.26% this year. They reported first quarter results, but Sunil Sangha, who I follow on Twitter, says staggering NPL provisions of 1.4 billion shillings by KCB put through the reserves exceed provisions of 0.95 billion through P&L. I'll look into that a bit more. Co-op Bank has really taken off in the last few sessions. It's up 28.03% year to date. Kenya is, of course, the world's leading black tea exporter and is planning specialty auctions for purple tea and other teas. Over the weekend, I wrote how internationally sugar prices are at 2-year lows, but here we are at an all-time high. Food inflation eye-popping 21% year-on-year. We have seen the prices of our breakfast commodities squeeze higher. Internationally, sugar prices are at 2-year lows, but here we are at an all-time high. This anomaly is something we should be discussing, but over the weekend I did not have the space to do that. But what the point I was making is those sugar licenses are worth their weight in gold. And yesterday we learned sugar price rises to a record high. Now the problem here is that the whole license system is being gamed. The government should really be picking up the phone to Temer in Brazil, demanding 100,000 tons of sugar and just dumping it on the market. But whether they'll do that is a different matter. So prices here are at a record high, but have a look at this chart of international sugar prices, which are at 2-year lows. A crowd stopped Raila's speech, demanded that he fights for the reduction of the price of unga. And I wrote about this before when I said there is a political dynamic at work. Food price increases have a big outsized positive negative well-being effect. Obviously, the effect is negative well-being at the moment here. Kenya shilling 103.445, Nairobi all share up 3.22% year to date, closed at a fresh 5.5-month closing high. NSE 20 up 0.3% year to date, 4-month closing high. Nairobi Securities Exchange has suspended trading of Atlas shares after CMA order, and Deacons is laying off top managers ahead of branch closures. Once again, thank you for stopping by, and if you've listened through all of it, I'm so grateful, and I wish you a super weekend.